Good day, esteemed listeners. My name is Olumide Okunmakinde. I'm a lawyer and an Oduifa cryptaesthetics interpreter and analyst. We're discussing the Fulani today. And the discussion about the Fulani is from the perspective of Oduifa. What Ifa says, what is said about, what does Ifa say about the Fulani? Kí ni Ifá wí nípa Fulani? This is a very important message. I won't call it a message, but it's a very important discussion. It is going to be very brief, but the attention of Fulani leaders, not just the Yoruba leaders generally, but attention of Fulani leaders is also crave. Yeah. And then this presentation goes a long way to also show how Ifa is interpreted in such a way that the whole society, there's some interpretations which could just be, personal or for the individual, but this one speaks of a people and also extends into their psychological frame of mind and also contains keys that give access into their historical antecedents. Now, the Fulani in history, they have this, they're known for recurrent incursions into non-indigenous territories. And they also have, their inclinations. They have inclinations for political and economic control through force and religion. This particular message is also expected to awaken the Fulani leadership to a new consciousness, anchored to a need to change their attitude in a way that ends the unpleasant press and record bedeviling them. Not just in Nigeria, but even in Africa. This anticipated ultimate sacrifice on the altar of Iwa, character, is expected to manifest, that changes in the dynamics of being, Fulani being, in a progressive socio-political moral order. So we'll start. The SAFI is taken from Odu Ose. SAFI is taken from Odu Ose Logbe. Ose to the right, Ogbe to the left. Ose lotun, Ogbe losi. We'll say it in Yoruba first before giving the translation in English. Ose Logbe. Abinu funfun bí ẹmu. Àbàmọ́ pàtà lọ́rùn. Ó dífá fún Fílàní tòun tọ̀pá rẹ̀. Wọ́n ń lọ rèé bá wọn múlẹ̀ ibùdó láì ru ẹbọ. Ìgbà wọn ò tèèrò. Ẹ jẹ́ á fìtì síbẹ̀. Let's stop it there. The English translation says, Ọ̀sẹ́ lógbè, one whose inner appearance is as white as palm wine, and who also has a growth attached to his neck. Divination was cast for Fulani and his walking stick. He was going on expeditions of taking, of founding towns, of finding places for settlement in inappropriate manners. There are times unpleasant. Ìgbà àwọn ò tèèrò. That is what Ifa means. That ìgbà àwọn ò tèèrò means there are times unpleasant. So the experience of the Fulani, that's what Ifa says, are unpleasant. They are referred to in that Esaifa as Fulani. So the conclusion of this, not the conclusion per se, but when it says Ìgbà àwọn ò tèèrò, as stated earlier, it says that where they get to, wherever they get to, the times are very unpleasant for the hosts. Now let us just look at what Oselogbe means. Oselogbe, in divination, when it is cast for someone, particularly when it comes to relational issues, the person is forewarned of betrayal. It is called the Oni, they call it Odu Afibisolore, the Odu that indicates one who repays kindness with evil, one who repays good, a good deed done with evil. So, when it comes to the host and visitor relations, if they cast divination for you or for someone, it means that that person is a dangerous. So that is what's the one first character. This is not to malign the Fulani, but to just tell the way they are, and towards redemption. Because once they refuse to sacrifice their stick, Okpa, and now let's take another, once they refuse to sacrifice the stick, they'll persist in their negative trend. So it is that the presence of that stick in their lives, in their plans, in their policies, in their thoughts will continue to, bring up inclinations towards that negative dimension which puts the imprint of Oselugbe on them. Now, again, let's examine the symbolism of the stick. With Fulani, in reality, the stick and the cattle, the nomadic life, going about, grazing, breaching territories, causing troubles, fighting, and the need to just expand. But the tool of this expansion is one. First, it is the cow, the walking stick. However, Okpa, the symbolism of Okpa, evolves also into weapons, because Okpa could also mean the gun. Let's look at the contemporary evolution of this symbol, Okpa and the gun. And then secondly, this is what they are meant to sacrifice. Now, this particular Okpa, the way of life, give it up and let there be peace and change, so that to avert or avoid the consequences in the long run. So, that aside, let's now look at the nature of Oselugbe. This is, again, when we look at the structure of Oselugbe, the symbolic, we're going now through the symbolic gates to access the mental and psychological character of the Fulani people and their ways and their impact on societies in history now, and what they rely on even for future, if they choose to come, if they persist, to stay on this lane. Now, Ose, that's the Odu of the human palm. Ogbe is the Odu of the head. Ose Logbe. Ose meets Ogbe, but in an offensive way, we can say Ose Logbe. Now, Ogbe is the Odu of the head. But in its fullness, the Odu is just one Odu that does not stand alone. It has what is called, okay, let me use it as the Odu of Ori. That has the head. It has what is called Aborido, the Odu of consciousness. It has imprints or aborido, those attached, odus that are also anchored to it. One, the iwori for the eyes, okoro for the ears, otura for the nose, nostrils, and ofun for the mouth. So, in human consciousness and the nature of man, generally speaking, the eyes, the eyes of humans, they're a symbol of perception. Perception in history, experience of ancestors, experience of a race, records kept, passed on, the perception. Let me just use the word perception and stop there. And then, of course, okoro, the ears, orature, historical transmission from generation to generation, and of course, instruction, moral instructions, political instructions, social instructions, the cultivation of the human mind, you know, to create cultural distinction. And then, of course, the mouth, the speech, what you say you are, what you perceive, what you learn, and what you now pass on to people from generation to generation. You know how you say, this is what I am. I can say, okay, I am Yoruba, and a proud one, as a matter of fact. So, etc. I say, this is what my ancestors say. Ifa, I talk about Ifa, I can talk about this, talk about that, talk about this philosophical inclination or ideology, political, just name it. It's like that across races. So the Jews are talking about who they are, the Arabs are talking about who they are, the people here, I'll give an example. The Yoruba people can also talk about who they are, but from the perspective of their ancestry. So that is it. And the nose, which is now the life, it is Otura, that's now the symbol of that's another key symbol of consciousness, the real human consciousness. So what it means is this. When Ose, the palm, reaches to that area, then we have manipulation of what you see. Your eyes could be blocked, can be stopped from seeing. Your ears can be blocked. Just talking, that's just symbolically speaking. Your life can even be snuffed out. You block the nose and you can be gagged. Stop talking. So generations could be ended where Ose meets Ogbe offensively. That is part of the dangers associated with incursions of the people referred to as Fulani, if we are going to extend it further. So, aside from the violence, the interaction of Ose with all other parts anchored to Ogbe, to the head. You now see this for example, Iwori. Ose now have perception, history, and epistemologies being altered or disrupted or cleared out or changed. Then Okano. History, human mind cultivation, education, what you hear, perception. Then often what people declare about themselves. After a successful indoctrination, by through the mouth, because it is the mouth that will be used to, when the mind is changed and our identity is changed, the person begins to speak in another identity. That is when that ose, but now impacts often the mouth. But you see, because the life, now we're not talking about the aspect of Otura there, which is the nose. Breath of consciousness, this, we're not talking about the mystical part of consciousness now, breath, but we're now talking about the dimension which religion comes in. And even in Ifa, it is in Otura Meji that that is the one that also foretells the incursions of religion, two particular religions, Islam and Christianity, into the Yoruba space. So we now know that Because if you're now going to look at it related to the Fulani, you know that the religion, they in particular, are like this, uses Islam. And one of the key things Ifa warned people in that Otura, which is generally said, people celebrate it, okay, it's announced as Islam. It doesn't say that Islam is bad. It doesn't say that Christianity is also bad. But it just warns the people of that space, geographical space, West Africa, the ones called, Yoruba, Karo, or Kotoji, those people, that they should be very careful so as not to lose their identity or destroy or self-destruct. That's why I think the Otura, that's why wutu wutu yaki, wutu wutu yambele, kasure patakmera, kafe walari fokwa modi. You see, that we are warned not to engage in a race to the extent in which we go into the state of exhaustion. Kasure pata, pata as in full exertion. Queen is also to the farthest. You stretch your limits to the end. Ra is to disappear, which also means Sure pata ra could mean also you run yourself out of extinction. A walari, you can't wear something very grand and be running and be running and be running. So it's really not an exclusively Muslim or Islam a call, a warning that one should just preserve one's identity. It also talks about Christianity too, because Otura is the Otura, the symbol of the Odu is that of a cross. It's that of a cross. So that aside, and you see, the Ewalari call, particularly for the Yoruba people, and it's just a warning that when these religions come, if it comes in a state where those who bring it are not bringing it for complementarity, they're bringing it to, in sort of, what Professor Baba Wishabimbola called elimination by substitution, which is found in these campaigns of, conversionism, which we know Baba Soyinka to always really speak up against. Conversionism. Now, it's like these religions come with a program, for self-destruction of identity. So that's what the Kasure Patak Miraka Ferualari Fokwamudinye. That's the warning. So we move on now from that aspect of religion to the political this time around. The control of the society when it comes to Ose meeting Ogbe, violently or offensively. Ose Lugbe is also the hand that inordinately reaches for the crown, because the head is the bearer of the crown. Adeori Ose tó bá lọ, ó máa fẹ́ ṣí Adeori yẹn. So when the hand inordinately reaches for the crown, it's a control of the society. So in this particular interpretation, we now find out that in normal, let's say democratic or civil societies, normal democratic societies, for example, the Fulani people, when they are there, they will always do everything within their reach and powers to rule. They won't continue, they will be the ones to want to rule and continue to propagate their agenda of taking, settling people down in inappropriate ways. And again, in the traditional sense of it, the hand reaching to the crown, which means, of course, wherever they go on that mission, the kings are the principal targets. Once the king of a town is taken out, that's it. They change it. They switch it to theirs and it becomes their own. And yeah. So let's just move on now. The entire traditional order, systems, all gone. So let's just look at what's the essay, another, what this essay, Ifa Oselugbe, so the essay Ifa Ose Lotun Ogbe Losi, can be deemed as a foreknowledge in literary symbolic forms of what is to come, what is to be experienced by the people of Southwest as they're currently, you know, as they're currently geographically defined, and in extension to other places where they politically reached in history before all these, separations by the Europeans into different countries. Now, and this particular one also indicates, because the essay, this particular one derives from Oyo, precisely from the Abimbola family. Professor Kolakbo, Abimbola's collections. Professor Kolakbo is a son to Baba Wishe Agbaye, Baba Professor Wande Abimbola. Yeah. So I'll just like to conclude this discussion with a note to Fulani leaders. Globally, within Nigeria and globally, the stakeholders, the Fulani stakeholders, it is time for the Fulani, it's time for them to change, it's time for you all to change your philosophy of life. No one is perpetually evil, and no one is perpetually good. All we just have to do is to maintain right sacrifices at the altar of consciousness, or at the altar of consciousness of Iwa. That is character. That's why the first says on so that no consciousness, no destiny is really that bad. But the difficult point is the point of character. If the right choices are made, the right attitude, something that looks more like the eightfold path to peace in Buddhism, so when the Fulani actually change their philosophy of life, they need to change them, transform from stick bearing, arms bearing, forcefully venturing into the political arena, transform into Asua Enia. Asua Enia, is the principle where you explore the Asua Enia principle. That's another, in Ifa, for building a proper civil social order. Asua principle is like a gathering of people in harmony. So with this, you can take the Fulani leadership can sit down and weigh their gains in the northern Nigeria. And first of all, take a decision to stop every expansionist agenda. Drop the stick. Drop the stick, drop the weapons, and, Ashwani Morereni. It is the gathering, the harmonious gathering, that we find human beings. Politically, then build the North. Look at the problems. Look into agriculture. So yes, there might be, we might need irrigation. The funds are there. The North can be rebuilt while you stop the expansionist agenda. At least, it's like a new civil, a new social order, which is possible. And when there is a will, there is a way. This is a better direction. It's much more better direction for the Fulani because it will lead to a progressive and positive transformation of the North. I repeat it. And this is how I'm concluding it. It's an appeal to reason. It is better, there is a better direction for the Fulani to drop the sticks and drop the weapons and drop the strategies. Have a change of heart, have a change of thought. Think in more better ways of building society, particularly the North, where they have gained access. So this is a better direction than continuing the stick and weapon path, continuing holding on, not dropping the okpa, which does not have a pleasant outcome in the end. It doesn't have a pleasant outcome in the end. So I hope this message meets you well. Ireu.